Welcome to the Forever and Ever podcast. I'm your host, Omar Hargrove, and today we're going to be talking about psychological factors and how we communicate love. And in this episode, we're going to be learning about how our upbringing, our personal experiences, and even our cultural norms shape the way that we give and receive love. Have you ever felt like you're speaking a different language from your partner? Like maybe you're doing everything that you can to be able to show them love, but it seems like it's just not really landing the way that you'd hoped? Well, you're not alone. There is a lot of that all over the place. We're all going through that, and we are going to figure out why that happens, and more importantly, how we can be able to bridge the gap. So let's get started with point number one, and that is how our upbringing shapes our communication styles. And it's this idea how the love that we're shown as kids plays a huge role in how we show and receive love as an adult. Think about if your family, did it express affection openly? Like, did you get a lot of hugs and a lot of I love yous, saying I love you right after getting off the phone, stuff like that? Or was your family more subtle at showing that love? Maybe they felt like love was shown by just making sure you were fed and safe and cared for. These kinds of patterns stick with us, and we carry them into our relationships. And there's a lot of times where you might say you were in a family that didn't receive love verbally all the time, not a lot of hugs and not a lot of I love yous, but your family thought, well, you're fed and we give you everything that you need. You're not lacking anything, and that was how you were shown love. And then you go into a relationship and you're doing all the right things, but your partner is still saying that they feel like you don't love them. And you're thinking, well, I love you. I did this with you. I did that with you. And you're thinking about the acts of service and the tasks that you've done with each other. And while they're feeling like they're totally neglected because they aren't receiving the love in the way that they're expecting, because as a child, they probably received it completely different than you did. And so this is the kind of scenario that we're talking about. For me and Lauren, one way that was kind of like unexpected as far as like being able to receive love is Lauren simply showed that she really cared about me. She would do things like like even like making me food where I was like, I can make my own food. And I'm talking about early on. Now I don't even know if I could make my own food. But early on, when she first was so nurturing and tried to prepare things for me, she was concerned if I got to work safely. She would say like, "Let me know when you get there." And that felt so abnormal to me, to where even though for her it was that was how she was loving me in her way. That's what felt like this connection. For me, it felt so abnormal to where I didn't know why she was asking these things. And at first, it even felt uncomfortable because I wasn't used to someone caring about my safety. I wasn't used to someone trying to take care of me in these ways. And this was a major this major gap for us when it came to communicating this love. And it all stemmed back to our upbringings. Both of us had major events in our childhoods that made us express love in those ways. And once we understood that, it helped us to be able to have empathy for one another and bridge that gap. Now, let's talk about personal experiences and cultural norms. This is this idea of different kind of relationships that we've had in the past where certain ways of expressing love didn't feel safe or were even rejected. And those kinds of experiences leave a mark. They shape how we approach love now. Like if you had a past relationship where someone cheated on you, well, I mean, it's going to most likely carry into the current relationships you have. You might have this internal fear if your partner is talking to a person of the opposite sex. Even if it's like a work relationship, it might make you feel uncomfortable because it's triggering to those past experiences. They may have no intention of cheating on you, but it makes you feel unsafe because of what has happened in the past. And now it's affecting your current relationships. And there's also some cultural norms and roles that affect how we think and how we're supposed to show love. For example, men might feel more pressure to show love by fixing problems or being this type of provider, while women might feel expected to be like the nurturers or the home caretakers, the emotional nourishment. You see, it's kind of like these traditional roles, but imagine a husband who feels love best by best shown by solving problems, and he's paired with a wife who just wants to be heard and validated. Without understanding these kinds of influences, they'll keep missing each other emotionally because he thinks when she's talking about her day and the problems she went through, he's thinking, okay, well, how can I fix that? And he says, well, maybe you should stop talking to her. Oh, maybe you should get a new job. And the wife will most likely respond like, I just want you to listen. I'm not wanting you to fix things. And see, it goes into these kind of like cultural norms of where we think we're supposed to fit and how we're supposed to love. And again, it's about being able to understand these past experiences, being able to understand these kind of like cultural expectations, and learning this sense of empathy of how we can understand one another. Maybe you never been cheated on and you're thinking, well, it's just Kathy from work. I don't see her that way. But couldn't you understand how if you had been cheated on, it might make you feel uncomfortable? And you're able to bridge this gap instead of just saying, no, you're crazy. You're wrong for thinking that. We can extend our love to each other and show a sense of nourishment, or at least give reassurance saying, I never want to do that to you. I care about you, etc. And we can start going over these kinds of issues and approach them differently rather than just getting defensive or saying, no, you're wrong. We can understand that we can leave this door open for a deeper connection as we talk about them. Now, that leads us to our third point, which is bridging this gap in communication style. So how do we bridge these gaps? And it starts with that level of curiosity, being able to understand where they're coming from, being able to understand their history, their culture, their childhood. And instead of assuming that your way is simply right and that they're wrong, take the time to learn your partner's language, to understand how they could feel these different ways. Here's a simple exercise. Ask your partner what made them feel most loved as a child. And it sounds at first glance maybe like a simple question, but once you really dive into it, it becomes this deep question that carries over to so many other parts of our lives. Was it hearing, I'm proud of you? Was that something that made you feel so loved as a kid? Was it spending quality time together? Was your favorite times as a family maybe going to the movie theater together and just sitting and being? Or was it in these moments where y'all were doing things together? Maybe it was even doing chores together. That's something that you look forward to because you got to spend this time of working with your family. Maybe it was as simple as a hug or a small gift, and it made you feel so loved. This one question can reveal so much about how your partner connects emotionally. And don't forget to share your own experiences too. This is time for y'all to have a back and forth. But the more that you both understand where your habits and your preferences come from, it becomes easier to be able to meet in the middle. It becomes a real game changer when you recognize your partner's way of receiving love and the way in which they show love. For me, I'm like a gift giver. I love receiving gifts. This goes into the 5 love languages, but just as like an example. And for me, receiving gifts, I love it. It's not that I'm materialistic. It feels like this idea of a gesture of love, and I love giving gifts. And there's been times for me and Lawrence where I might go out of my way to get a gift, and I think that she's gonna just like fall on the floor because it's such an amazing gift. And she gives it like, oh wow, thanks, that was really nice. Like, no, you should cry. Like you should feel more empathetic about this. And then the other times where she gets me a gift, and I think, well, don't you know me? Why do you think I would want this? Don't you know me better? And it was just her thought of trying to give a gesture of a gift, but here I am, and I want the gift to mean this. I want it to mean that because it's like this deep inner meaning. At the end of the day, we're talking different languages, and could you imagine if she only spoke Spanish and I only spoke English, and me getting mad at her for not knowing English right away? It's something that she would have to learn. It would take time, and there might even be times where she learns it perfectly, but still messes up on a couple words. And the same for me learning Spanish. It might take a little while. It's going to take some getting used to. I might accidentally say some words in English. That's a lot what it's like when it comes to understanding these psychological ways of learning love and how we express love. And it's shaped by these years of experience. It's shaped by the culture that we were brought up in. It was shaped by our childhood. But the good news is that we're not stuck in these patterns of continuing to have these misunderstandings, because we can feel empathy for each other. We can make a decision to grow together, and by understanding these types of psychological factors, we can bridge these gaps. We can create love that truly resonates with both of us. And your partner, you need to remember, your partner is not rejecting your love. They just might not yet understand it. And with a little more effort, we can learn to speak their language while helping them to understand ours. So that being said, thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you want to go deeper into these kinds of ideas, you should join our free Facebook group, Forever and Ever Facebook group, and it's a great space for us to share insights, to connect with one another as we go on this same journey together. And if this episode struck a chord with you, then you should really grab a copy of my book, Forever and Ever, and it's packed with these kinds of practical exercises and topics that will help you and your partner connect on a deeper level. So until next time, have a great life.